from the desk of Maester Clive to Maester Yandel of the Citadel. I write to you to express my outrage and discontent concerning your wretched actions against the education of His Grace King Tommen by denying my contributions to the world of ice and fire. I have labored diligently for years to gather the evidence and construct the framework for alternative theories and historical timelines of the Andal invasion and its impact on the First Men. However, there is not one maester south of the neck, not one, that gives my work any credibility, and you have done nothing to counter this slander. My work in the translation of runestones, as well as collecting Northmen oral histories, and the surviving fragments of written works, such as the Goldralag saga by Tolark the Elder, point to three indisputable facts. To begin, First Men Lords founded the Order of the Drudox, a hidden enclave of lore masters and rune elders, to preserve their history and provide a record of the Andal conquest. Second, your accounts and timelines of the Andal subjugation of the Riverlands are once again in dispute. It is almost certain that there was a large Andal invasion of the Riverlands prior to the conquest and unification of the Vale under House Arryn. Finally, your marginalization of Erreg the Kinslayer is a betrayal of our duty. There is strong evidence from First Men sources that Erreg was the earliest Andal High King of the Riverlands and may even have besieged Castle Rock. You and countless members of our order, from King's Landing to the Citadel, may consider my research a fool's errand, but to deny my contributions to His Grace is not only petty, but shameful. For in denying King Tommen these alternate accounts, you deny the King wisdom, you deny the King the capacity to have a complete perspective, and you deny the King the ability to formulate his own conclusions. But then again, that may be what you wanted. Perhaps that's the way you play your Game of Thrones. A cold wind blew its breath o'er the waves, making bitter the day off the desolate, ancient shore of the old Dornish coast. Here, through faith in the Seven, the Andals sought their destiny. They thanked the gods for victories in these harsh foreign lands, but it was their weapons of iron that none could withstand, whether children of the forest or folk of the First Men. These thoughts passed through the mind of Erreg, a tall Andal warrior full of wrath and great pride. Yet unlike his kin, he did not profess to have faith in the Seven, trusting only his axe to claim battle, plunder, and women. Another cold day in these frozen waters of hell. Would the sun come to these tides and release us from its spell? Nature is cruel, but the gods are more cruel still. You cannot trust the gods, but blood and iron, these things a warrior can trust, though the world would turn to dust. His thoughts were interrupted by the roar of the sea. The icy spray of ocean waves returned his mind to the course ahead, as the ship cleaved through tides like a specter of dread. Suddenly, Erreg beheld firelight flickering leagues away. Slowly, one fire gave way to many. Soon, Erreg spied the outline of a First Men settlement. Whether by careless vigilance or forsaken god, the Dornish folk had not yet seen them. There was no alarm sounded, and its people did not stir, embracing sweet sleep while death approached. Erreg released a smile that would cower a direwolf. These First Men were like fattened cattle, ripe for slaughter, he thought. Now he and his Andal brethren had their prey in sight, as dawn overtook the witching hour of night. Erreg turned from the horizon, jumping down to the deck and walked to the stern of the ship, passing two men standing guard upon the bridge. Opening the cabin door, he heard the moans of a Braavosi whore.
Cousin, pull your sword from a sheath and prepare your armor and shield.
For soon we shall land upon the beach and devour this settlement as a lion consumes sheep. Einar the Great, war chief of this Andal tribe, rose from his bed and grinned, thunderously pounding his chest. He then took up his sword and raised it over his head.
By the seven, what a glorious morn! Upon the breath of dawn, we shall make these wretches pay.
Standing proud and fierce, Einar donned his armor. A bloodlust entered his soul as the war chief prepared for battle.
Come, Erreg, let us go onto the bridge and take our ship into the wind.
As you command, war chief, and by this day's end, first men's bleached bones shall be scattered upon the old Dornish coast. The early morning light had not yet broken forth onto day, while the long ships flung their forms towards the sandy shore. Sails were rolled, while torches and calls were silenced. The Andals heaved oak and ash oars, seeking violence. Upon the horizon above, streaks of morning stretched across the sky, as the Andals waited to unleash wrath and war cry. Soon 3 waves of ships breached their hulls upon the beach. Hundreds of men waded through the tides, until finally the last vessel arrived. Einar climbed over the dragonhead bow, jumping into the surf. Now, he thought, we shall have blood and glory. As he reached the sand, he knelt and said a prayer.
Father, judge our fighting men worthy to enter your halls. Mother, grant us mercy when in battle we fall. Maiden, let us return to the women we love. Crone, let your lantern light our minds with wisdom and judgment. Warrior, come amongst my men, that none should run from battle this day. Smith, make our iron strong, and our shields never splinter. Stranger, Lord of darkness, death, and the unknown, let those faithless ones beyond the shore dwell, forever in the 7 hells.
Einar pounded his chest 7 times, then rose up from the ground. Erreg stood by at his side.
Perhaps we should delay the attack, cousin, and give you more time for prayer.
At those words, Einar smiled, his eyes following a passing flight of gulls.
Nay, kinsman, my prayers are done. Now let us cleave and split skulls.
Erreg signaled silently for every captain and his force to march. The Andals formed a battle line below the ridge and were ready to kill. They could see the morning smoke from town begin to rise, when suddenly the men were surprised, watching 2 girls walk over the hill. They laughed, they talked, they smiled, then utterly froze, as ferocious men of war stood with axes, spears, and bows. Petrified by fear, they made no attempt to flee. Shock battered their throats, terror gripped their faces. Without hesitation, Einar and Erreg came upon the girls and ran their long knives over soft virgin flesh. The girls' tiny throats ran red with blood, and the men looked on as life drained from bright eyes. A few moments later, the little ones died.
A sacrifice for the 7,
Einar said softly.
Keep your faith, cousin,
Erreg replied.
but give me battle.
Then Einar raised his sword and gave the order to attack. Erreg placed the war horn to his lips and delivered a mighty blast. The first men were roused from hearth and home, while guards emerged from their towers to find vast numbers of ships along the shore. Einar turned before his men.
Fall upon these wretches, slaughter them all, and put their gods to the torch.
The Andal battle line surged over the bluff, then came crashing down like a great wave towards the town, unleashing a terror that these Dornish folk had never known. Blood soaked the ground, while bodies were trampled down. Fire and iron consumed all. Everywhere, the Andals cut down men, women, and children. Axe, sword, and torch were thrust like lightning into flesh. Sunlight illuminated a crimson wake as many perished before their foe. The survivors were bound and marched back towards the ships, all their worldly goods, wealth, and livestock stripped. Erreg then beheld an alluring sight to stay his eyes, as he looked upon a woman of this conquered tribe. Her body was young, firm, and beautiful. Brown as the earth was the color of her hair. But she did not weep, for she had no tears, nor did she make a sound or show any sign of fear. Erreg approached her with the full power of his lust, set to plunder her body and rip her maidenhead apart. His hands gripped the woman and tore open her frock.
Nay, cousin Erreg, do not touch the wench.
Einar cried harshly as he approached, sword drawn.
These Dornish are soft, weak, and useless things. They are maggots and rats, fit for nothing. Their men are feeble, their women feebler still. Do not taint our blood to seek out a cheap thrill.
Erreg was enraged.
By the laws of our conquest, set down by your own charter, this girl is my price, and you may not deny me my plunder. Erreg,
Einar spat.
slay me now, or yield upon this ground. Are you going to challenge me just for the right to penetrate this harlot?
He pointed his sword at Erreg's neck, watched his cousin, and waited. Erreg's eyes blazed hot, but he did not move to fight.
Wise decision,
Einar said, sheathing his sword. Then he grabbed the half-naked woman in scorn.
Lokar, come here.
Einar said, and the warrior heard his chief's call.
Take this pretty thing before the men as a reward. They'll enjoy the sight of this sand snake, my lord. By the time we're through, she'll beg for the sword.
Lokar cuffed the woman with his fist, then hoisted her over his shoulder and carried her away.
Come, Erreg, let us return to the ship and get the fleet underway.
Erreg nodded, but spoke to himself as he watched his cousin go.
Yes, Einar, let us return home, lest we stay here too long, and I hack the flesh from your bones.